Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 221 of the Kiss Army Nation podcast. I'm your host, Pasquale Veri. Claudio continues to enjoy his vacation, and he will be back within the next couple of episodes. And knowing his passion for the band, I'm sure he is really anxious to get back behind the mic. Speaking of passion, our next guest's passion for Kiss runs deep. With his unforgettable experiences, our guest has lived the Kiss Army life to the absolute fullest. On this episode, we're going to dive into our guest's most memorable stories. Kiss Army Nation, please welcome Robert Brodsky Jr. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Listen, I want to start with the following, because since we started this show, Matt's name came up so many times. It could have been a drinking game, and he came on the show quite a few times. So I want to start there. How did your friendship with Matt Porter come about?
Okay, I met Matt Porter in 1988. I live in the Philadelphia suburbs, so does Matt. And we went to community college, Bucks County Community College. And he was in the video department. I was taking an acting class, very early, like acting 1 or acting 2. And the acting teacher wanted us to start videotaping the scenes that we were practicing to critique them together. And you're able to critique yourself better, obviously, when you are looking at it on screen as opposed to doing it. So they asked someone from the video department to come down and video us. And lo and behold, who is it? Matt Porter. And this is 1988, and I'd never met him or anything. But the scene that day that we were all doing, taking turns, was called 3 Minutes of Your Life When You're Alone. So right. I did a thing of just getting ready for work or getting ready to go out, and had Kiss music going. And I brought in some Kiss paraphernalia and had it behind me, kind of like I set up for this interview, to look like when you're at home and you're 19 or 20 or whatever I was at the time, and just sang along with I Was Made for Loving You, I Can't Sing Worth Anything, and did the whole scene and did the falsetto as off key as I could to sort of, just show how you act when you're alone. It just gets you to open up when you're learning acting or whatever. And Matt was the guy filming it. Well, after I do my scene and I collect my stuff, and the next person is setting up in the class to do their 3 minutes, when they're alone, Matt just walks over to me and leans in and goes, "I love your Kiss stuff." And it really started from there, because a few weeks later, I'm walking through the student cafeteria at the community college, and I see Matt with this denim jacket with Kiss pins all over it. And I just walked over and I said, "Hey, what's up?" And he was sitting at a table by himself, and I sat down and we started comparing Kiss stories. Like, I had seen Kiss in '79 in the makeup. He saw Frehley's Comet. And we were trading off things that we had done. And that just started a lifelong friendship right there.
Wow. That's amazing. Now,
yeah.
I'm asking because I know that Matt was a big part of your journey with Kiss, both as a fan and as a friend. So tell us a little bit about the role Matt played on this journey in your Kissdom.
Well, that 1988, 1989, 1990, I mean, Kiss had some success at that point, but you really didn't have any friends, at least I didn't, that liked Kiss at all. So, I met him, we got friendly, and then the next semester, his twin brother Anthony was at the college, and I met him and didn't even realize at first they were brothers, but that sort of connected us all, where we started to keep in touch a little bit more, or call each other when an album like Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits came out. It's like, you got to call Matt or you call Anthony and, "Hey, did you hear, or did you get it yet?" And that started that kind of friendship. But that sort of pushed us, we kept in touch with each other, outside of the college. And actually, if it wasn't for Anthony Porter, I never would have seen at least not the '89 Paul Stanley solo tour in Brooklyn. He got tickets first. I knew nothing about it. You know what I mean? And then he came up to the college and said, "Paul's playing L'Amour's in Brooklyn." I never heard of L'Amour's at that time, So that sort of, and I saw that show. And then Paul came, because even though I live in Pennsylvania, I live near Trenton, New Jersey. Later in that '89 solo tour, Paul played in City Gardens in Trenton, and Matt was at that show. So it just, we just kind of pushed each other. Whenever one of us heard news, we would call each other. And it sort of got me out to more shows than just playing the local show, because I'd never gone, it wasn't a normal thing to go up to Brooklyn from where I live to go to a concert, and we just, that's kind of the influence in the early days anyway, you know.
Yeah, that's amazing because I've always said, it's more about the fans now than it is about Kiss. It's
Yes.
that the band has given us so many opportunities to meet fans, to meet people, lifelong friends, and this is a great example of that.
Yeah.
Now, I know that you've been on the Kiss Room a few times. Um,
Oh, yeah. I don't even count. I mean, since the beginning, almost once a year at least, sometimes twice. Yeah.
right, right. So, any stories you want to share about your experiences in the Kiss Room? Were you ever shot out of the cannon?
I mean, nobody, yeah, everybody shot out of a cannon once it starts. It really, because it's going out live and it's not recorded like this, you feel it a little differently. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, we're gonna go, and then you go, and whatever you say, there's no going back on it.
Yeah, that's right.
So that shot out of a cannon. I mean, the first or second time I ever did it, that guy that was on the road crew, Mick Campisi, in the early
Yeah.
years of Kiss, he had called in, and I was just sitting there listening to Matt interview him, and then Matt leaned over to me off a mic and said, "Ask him about any memories on the float in Cadillac, Michigan, being on the float," because he was actually on the float with the band. And so I tried to get as professional as I could. And I said, "Hey, Mick, it's Bob Brodsky." And I said, "What memories do you have on the float?" And then he answered the question. But if you went back to that 10, 12 years ago, whenever that was, after I asked the question and Mick Campisi answers it, you can hear Matt and I high five on the mic. That was pretty cool because that's just one of those names that's in the liner notes that when you were 10 years old, you didn't know who these people were or what they looked like or what they did. And that night I met you when Alive 75 played at the Montgomery County Community College. We got to meet J.R. Smalling that night.
Yeah.
And I think of that every time Kiss Alive opens. So, it's just that, that was a good experience talking to Mick Campisi. Other than that, a lot of times when the mics fire up, it's just me and Matt talking,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just magic.
Matt still talks about that day because we talk with each other online or whatever, but then when you see each other face to face, it's like, wow, that person I've been talking to online for so long now is standing right in front of me.
Right.
It's a pretty cool experience.
It is. And then, that night that the Alive 75 played there, that was actually pretty cool. I had low expectations, to be honest. I'm not the biggest fan of the tribute bands, but they pulled off a good show. And like I said, that's where I met you, and we just all had a good time going up there. And Lydia Chris was there. It was quite an experience.
Yeah, and like you, these are people that we saw in the liner notes, and then we see them in person. And I met J.R. Smalling as well, and we actually became friends. It's like
oh wow!
To this day, I still can't believe I was friends with J.R.
That's cool. That's awesome.
It's something else. So now I want to go back a little bit to where it all started for you. Your first Kiss. How did you first discover Kiss?
Okay, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I don't know why. Did you have show and tell in Canada in elementary school?
Oh yeah.
Okay. The first times I ever heard of Kiss were actually, like after Alive came out, a kid in second grade, brought in Alive, and then in third grade or somewhere around there, another kid brought in Alive too. And I was so into like Star Trek and Planet of the Apes, and then later Star Wars. It looked cool, but it wasn't registering for me. But I do remember, obviously, I don't remember much about third grade, but I remember that kid opening up the Alive 2 for show and tell and explain and showing the booklet and everything. But then so I was aware of them from those, the kids bringing the stuff in and talking about it at the lunch table. But then when they were on the American Music Awards and Natalie Cole introduces that like 1 minute or 1.5 minute clip of them, shout it out, a little bit of Shout It Out Loud and a little bit of Rock and Roll Night. That was the first time that I got to see them move around, do their thing with some fire and some whatever. And my eyes, just got as big as could be and my head exploded. I was like, that's Kiss? That's what those kids are talking about? And from then on, I was like, Mom, I got to get a Kiss record. I got to do this. I got to do that. And it wasn't long after that I got my first Kiss album. And then from there, it was just off to the races.
So what was your first Kiss album?
It was Love Gun.
Love Gun. Okay. I could imagine seeing the inside of Alive 2 and then that picture coming to life, either a live concert or on television. How can you not get hooked into the band?
Right. Right. And then getting that album, which I really wanted a live too, actually, when I looked at all the records. But remember, that's a double album. So it
Yeah.
was like it was over twice as much as a single album. And I had some money that I had been saving from a birthday or some kind of present, like I don't know. And that was all I had the money for, was whatever the sale price was for Love Gun. And that was my first one. But, but then, like I say, then I just kept getting them. It was like all of a sudden it was like, I had one, and every time I asked my mom or my dad or somebody when we were at the mall, can I get this one? Can I get that one? I seemed to get a yes, so I was pretty
Nice.
happy.
Nice.
Yeah.
That shirt you're wearing, the Return of Kiss, that brings back memories for me. That was my first Kiss concert, the Montreal Forum, 1979 Dynasty. It changed my life. What was your first concert?
It was actually July 24th, 1979 at Madison Square Garden. And that's a miracle that I even ended up at that show, because I live in the Philadelphia suburbs. But what happened was, earlier in the summer, I went on a sightseeing trip with my grandmother. We took the train up to New York, because from here the train is like an hour and 20 minutes, and we're at Penn Station. So, it's not too bad of a trip. So we went up for a long weekend, like in June after school let out. My grandmother took me, and we did all the stuff, Empire State Building, World Trade Center, all that. Went to the Statue of Liberty. But obviously Penn Station and Madison Square Garden are the same building. Well, the ads were everywhere around Penn Station for the concerts, the 2 nights at the Garden for Kiss. And then also we saw ads on the side of buses, because that's how we got around the city, was jumping on and off the bus or on and off the subway. And there were ads all over for those Madison Square Garden shows. And I wanted my grandmother to buy me tickets there, but I was only 10 years old. She's like, no. I said, oh, my dad promised me he would take me to see Kiss. And she didn't want to do it, and she didn't. But eventually, the long story short, when we got home, I got my mom to buy the tickets. And on July 24th, my dad and I got on the train and went up to the Garden and saw Kiss for the first time.
That's funny, because that era was sort of like the decline of Kiss. And for us, it was the highlight. I mean, it changed our lives seeing that show.
If you were 10 years old, there was no decline.
Exactly.
If you were 18 or 25, yes, I guess if they got into it around Hotter Than Hell, Dressed to Kill, or Alive, they probably did see a decline. But for us, it was like, this is the biggest thing ever.
Oh, man, those larger than life costumes when they came out of the floor, I'll just never forget it.
And at that time, I had not seen any of the pictures from the tour in any of the magazines, so I thought we were going to see the Alive 2 show. So I was completely floored with the white stage and how they came up, and the way they backlit them from my nosebleed seats. It looked like they were glowing. It didn't look like lights. It looked like they came up and that they were glowing, like when you watch the Super Friends on Saturday morning. I mean, it was unreal.
Well, they were like heroes, because each of them had their distinct colors.
Yes.
With their costumes, and the lighting was so well done.
I know, but that's how it looked to me, like they were actually glowing. It didn't look like lights. It was like they came up like real superheroes and then started playing King of the Nighttime World. It was pretty cool.
And my God, I keep saying this on the show, but I remember Gene playing Charisma on that tour. And I know for a fact he never played it.
Right.
But,
I know.
But in my head, he played Charisma.
Well, in my head, I always thought that they played Radioactive, but they did not at the Garden. If you look at the set list,
no.
The bootleg was on YouTube for a while, and once in a while it pops up again. They didn't play Radioactive, but for years I thought they did.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, talking to you right now, your passion for the band really comes across on the screen, and it's getting me excited talking about the band, and we're going back and forth, you and I. That's what I love about these fan profiles. It's talking about the band, like our history with the band, our love for the band. It just hypes us up,
Yeah, definitely.
But my question to you is, and you've been a fan since what? You said 78, 79?
78, officially summer of 78, yes.
Right. Okay. So after all these years, would you say that your passion for the band is still as strong as it was in the early years?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, for sure. Because I was at the last show at the Garden, and I was pretty excited to be there. And, the thing about the last show for me is that my first show was at the Garden. So then to go to the last show at the Garden, and I saw Kiss on the Hot in the Shade tour at the Garden, the reunion tour, the Psycho Circus tour, Sonic Boom. I went back up to the Garden, but I've never gone to see anyone else at the Garden. And so to go in there on that last night, I couldn't go the second to the last night because I had to work. So I only went to the final show. But to walk in there and think, I may never come in here again. I mean, unless Eddie Murphy plays the Garden, I don't see myself
Oh,
going up
right.
there for anybody else.
Wow. The final show was the first time I saw a concert at Madison Square Garden.
Okay.
So that was really memorable. It was like, this is holy ground for Kiss,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So just seeing it there was just an amazing experience. And the whole New York experience,
Yeah.
the subway, the pizza boxes, the pop-up stores,
Yeah.
what
Well,
the pre-parties.
Yeah, I did a little bit of that. I got to New York 2:30 in the afternoon on the day of the last show. Saw like Andy Moyen when we got there,
Yeah.
and I found some friends that I knew from the Kiss cruise that came out from Texas, and I messaged them, and we went and found them. But another interesting story is I have vivid memories of going to the Garden with my dad on that train ride in '79. And I'm on the train. I brought my mom with me to the last show, my brother, and my best friend Felix. You know Felix.
Yes.
Yes, we all went up on the train, and as the train's getting closer and it gets more crowded, there was a guy standing, because at this point it's only standing room, and he's telling everyone around us with Kiss shirts that he went on the train with his dad in
Oh,
1979
wow.
to see the band. So then we started doing it back and forth about, yeah, I did the same thing, and it was this magical moment of that. Now, who knew 43 years later, that we were going to go to the last, it felt like the last ride, really.
Yeah.
Well,
For me, New York City is one of the most amazing cities in the world. I love that city to death. And for those 2 nights that weekend, we owned New York City. We're walking down the streets. We're seeing people with Kiss shirts. We're pointing at them. They're pointing back. We're talking. We have things in common with people around the city. It was so surreal.
it was, even when I got there at 2:30. I mean, I'm like, I've been up there, like as I said, many times to see Kiss, and that was the most Kiss the city ever was. Usually, once you get within a half a block away from the Garden, it kind of dissipates. But we went around a little bit, and everywhere was Kiss.
Oh yeah. That was amazing. A Kiss World, it's the way it should be.
Yes, absolutely.
So for me, that was one of many unforgettable experiences. What would you say was your most unforgettable Kiss related experience as a fan?
Oh God, I don't know if I can narrow it down to just one.
I hear you.
That first show is obviously always going to live on,
Yeah.
forever, because when you're 10, you don't know. I didn't know it was going to be like that. I thought it was going to be more like when we saw Live 75 at Montgomery County Community College. And then you get to the Garden and it's so big, it's like a million times bigger than you could conceive. But then another memorable one besides that would be the first time I ever got backstage or met anybody in the band was in Philadelphia on the Hot in the Shade tour. And I sort of the whole time didn't believe it was really going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I actually, at that point, worked in a record store at the local mall here. And when I got the job, the assistant manager said, "Oh, you like Kiss or whatever?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Have you ever met them?" And I said, "No." And at that time, you kind of could get a hookup with the record label reps to get a backstage pass for some shows. And she said, "Oh, well, when they come around, I could get you backstage." And I was like, okay, I didn't really believe her. That was like a year before we actually ended up doing it, but a year later, I'm still working. I actually worked for that company for 8 years. So, but a year later, when they came around for the Hot in the Shade tour, I was like, hey, you said you could get me backstage, and a bunch of us from work and a buddy of mine were all going to the concert, and she said yes. The guy from Polygram, or whatever record label it was in 1990, said he could get us on the list. So we meet her at the Spectrum in Philadelphia, and lo and behold, they hand us a pass, and we go down these steps, and we go in this room. And Matt Porter, who obviously I knew for a few years then, that was his first time backstage, but his friend Frank was doing a fanzine at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how Matt got his hookup. But when we got down in the room, that's where I first saw Matt. Although the whole time he was on the other side of the room,
Right.
and when it was over, we saw each other and we high-fived. That at that point, we couldn't believe it. But I saw Gene, but I didn't get to meet him. There were too many cute girls around me, so he didn't come over and sign for us. But I met Eric Carr. That's the only time I met Eric Carr, and Bruce, and then Paul. And I have a great photo of me and Paul Stanley. And I got that blown up into a poster, the photo of me and Paul Stanley. I was really excited to experience that. That's one of my highlights.
Nice, nice. And I want to talk about your encounters with the band, but before that, I follow you on social media, and I see that you've done a lot, and I mean a lot of Kiss related events. You're freaking everywhere. Was there that one event that you missed and regret not going, either because you didn't want to go, you couldn't go?
I've been thinking about that one. There's a, as far as anything that I wanted to go to, I pretty much go, since I've been in my 20s. Obviously when I'm a kid, you can't go, you can only go where your parents will let
Yeah.
you. I mean, there's some shows in the last 10 years. My job has a strict policy about when you can take time off. So I had to miss like Kiss in Atlantic City, Kiss in Allentown, which isn't that long of a drive for me where I live to go to Allentown, PA. I even just missed Ace a couple of weeks ago in Allentown,
Mm.
so those ones, I mean, and then there's like I never got to see the Creatures of the Night tour, but I didn't get a choice. They didn't come. They didn't come within 5 hours of where I live on the Creatures of the
Yeah.
Night tour. So there was just no way to go, and I'm still bummed out about it. Even though when they did the reunion tour, and I thought, oh, I'll finally get over that missing the Creatures of the Night tour. But it doesn't matter how many shows you see. It's that one year where they were just so good, and I was so ready to go, and I just had no way to get there.
Yeah, yeah. I regret that one as well. I remember the marquee for Creatures of the Night at the Montreal Forum. Kiss was on it. I remember it so distinctly, and I wasn't at that show. What the heck was I thinking?
You live near there, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Right, I'm here in Montreal. They come here all the time.
Okay,
But
and you didn't go.
I didn't go, and they came one more time for Lick It Up. I didn't go, and then they only came back for Hot in the Shade.
Wow,
I know.
Because, the one thing is they didn't come around for Creatures, but for Lick It Up, they did play Philadelphia, the Tower Theater, and I had to really talk my dad to go, and he's like, "Why do you want to go? They're not popular anymore." All the lines.
Yeah, yeah,
And we did get to go to the Lick It Up show, and I've actually saw every tour from Lick It Up all the way to the end. At least the American tours.
Right, yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so now I want to go back to your encounters with the band. So which one do you say was the most memorable?
How about the one we were at together, the bus tour with Peter Criss?
Oh my God, yes. Oh, wow.
What a crazy roller coaster up and down. Like I almost didn't get on the bus, but then it worked out.
Listen, I got there early because I got a wind of the promoter. It's like, this guy is not very organized. So I get there early. There's no one in line. I forget his name. I see the organizer sitting in the hotel. I go, so what's the procedure out there for lineups or whatever? He goes, there is no procedure. I go, what are you, crazy? People are gonna go nuts trying to get on the bus, right? So I went out there and I basically started a line. I started the procedure, and it was a first come, first serve in line. And I saw people trying to kind of go, no, back of the line, man. You're not cutting in. There's a procedure here,
Right.
And yet some people still didn't get on the bus.
I know. And Matt, I was with Matt Porter on that trip. We stayed in the same hotel room together. We had that. I mean, that ended up being a whole great weekend, the convention and all that.
Yeah.
But the bus tour, we could see the bus was getting full when there were like 3 or 4 people in front of us. And I started to sort of see like Peter and the promoter and Peter's wife, Gigi, kind of like they're counting or they're whatever they're doing. And it's like, I think Matt said to me, I don't think we're going to get on the bus. And then luckily, I think it was us and one more person behind us got on the bus, but only because a couple of guys that had done the bus tour in LA decided, okay, if there's not enough room, we already did one of these tours. They were willing to give up their seat for people that hadn't done the tour yet.
Okay. I didn't know that because I remember Gigi actually left the bus. Right. And she took the fans who couldn't get on the bus for lunch.
Right. But a couple of those guys, I think, had done the LA one.
Okay.
Was it like 2 months before or 3 months before they did the bus tour around LA? And I think a couple of, at least a few, maybe not everybody, she took the lunch, but a couple of them I had overheard as we were getting on the bus that they had already done the tour in LA and they were willing to give up their seats because some of us had never done anything like that. And we got on. And then you were up top and Matt and I were down the bottom. And they didn't turn the air conditioner on at the bottom until they got till we started moving, and it was hot down there because I remember Peter was up top in the beginning, and then he moved down because he was hot. Well, he didn't know what it was like from when we started to the first stop, how hot it was until they started running the air.
I remember people were upset going at the bottom because there was no windows.
Right.
And
Well,
and no Peter. He was upstairs.
Well, you know what they had? The windows were there, but they did one of those things where they put ads over the windows.
Right. Yes.
And then you could see through them, but it was like netting.
Yeah.
But so you couldn't see clearly. You know what I mean? So it was like a two-way, but the two-way is not perfect. It was like trying to look through a chaise or something. You know what I mean? So that was no good. And I remember Matt looked at me. He's like, "We're getting our money back." And I was like, "Calm down. Let's just see how it goes." And after the first stop, Peter wanted to go sit in the air condition. So then we had a good view of him the whole time.
Yeah.
And I think once we went to Electric Lady Studios and got off the bus and got to go into Electric Lady Studios, everyone calmed down.
Yeah.
And we were just, I still cannot believe we did that.
That wasn't planned.
No, I think they saw like there was this crowd of 100 people or how many of us there were. And what I heard, because what's interesting, we were at the back. So whoever was up front and could hear Peter talk by the front door of Electric Lady, somehow I think the story I heard was the manager came out and said, "What's going on? Peter Criss is here with 100 fans." And that the manager of Electric Lady said that we could come in and look around as long as we didn't really touch anything or break anything. But that got back like word of mouth because we were like, I walk slow. And so I was way at the back, five doors down from Electric Lady on that street, on that sidewalk. And it just came back word of mouth. We're getting in and we're going to get to walk around. And, so that's how it happened. I think they wanted Peter. The story I heard was they wanted Peter Criss to pose for some pictures in Studio A for their Instagram, and then we could just walk around for like 20 minutes and see everything.
Yeah. That was an incredible weekend. I remember being on top of the bus, with Peter Criss right next to me, talking about Kiss in New York City. I mean, his voice coming into my ears, like this is the guy I heard on record, and
right.
now I'm listening to him right next to me talking about his experiences in New York City and the stories he was telling, man. No. He didn't hold back.
No. They were great stories. It's so bizarre, I'll never forget it because even when I listened to like Dress to Kill, because we went to the corner, you can't help but remember that day and think we walked around these places where they recorded albums, where they posed for an album cover. We were just walking around there with Peter Criss.
Yeah.
It was insane. Like 10-year-old me, you would never think that was ever going to happen.
And then it ended at Madison Square Garden with a picture with everybody and Peter Criss in front of the garden.
Yes. That was great too.
Wow.
But I like having that picture. It came out good. But the one, and I think you're in the one with me and Matt, those smaller group photos we did at Electric Lady. I love that picture. It's so cool that we're in there because Jimi Hendrix built that studio and all the people besides Kiss that recorded there. It's unbelievable.
How many fans could say they went in there because they're not allowed?
Right. I know. When I went back, I used to work at that time with a guy that was a pretty big Kiss fan. I mean, he liked them like we do. He just didn't go out to a lot of shows or he just liked to listen to the music. But when I went back to work and said we got to go into Electric Lady, his jaw was on the floor. Like nothing else I told him was as impressive as we got to walk around Electric Lady studios.
Yeah, we got into Electric Lady, but did you ever get into the loft? I know I didn't.
No, I didn't either.
No, they're tough, eh? They're tough. They don't let anybody in there.
No.
Especially if you're wearing a Kiss shirt. They know right away. Keep that guy out.
Yeah.
All right. So was there an encounter with a band member that was really unexpected? Either it's like you couldn't believe you actually got to meet that person or something that happened that was unexpected?
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, so we talked about the bus tour. That was unreal. Yeah. I mean, unexpected would be I went on 2 of the Kiss cruises. I was on Kiss Cruise 1 and Kiss Cruise 3. And, you were getting your photo with them, so that's expected. But on Kiss Cruise 3, one of the morning when you can go to the beach, the beach day at the little island that the ship docks at, we're in line to get on the boat to go to the beach. And in full leather jacket and leather pants, who just walks in that little walkway is Gene Simmons.
Hmm.
And he's like, "Good morning, everybody. How are you doing?" And I just turned around and I couldn't believe he was there, but I think he recognized me from our previous encounters. And so he walked over to me and asked me how I was doing and was everyone treating me okay. And I forgot that etiquette. They give you the little rules of the
Yeah.
cruise. You're not supposed to ask them for pictures, when you run it, if you run into them on the ship. But I just did it. And the part, and he posed for the picture. The only thing, I had my digital camera and the flash didn't go off, but so it's a little fuzzy, and he didn't mind. And but it was unexpected, and it was unexpected that he saw me in this group of fans, and everybody was all excited. Hey, Gene, he just made a beeline for me and wanted to know if I was okay, and was everybody treating me okay?
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah,
Man, I remember those that rule on the Kiss cruise, and I followed it to the letter. I see a band member, I say hi, I keep walking, I leave them alone. Then you see
well,
a
I
bunch of
forgot.
people. Then you see a bunch of people over there taking pictures. They go, "Oh my God, really? I could have been having a picture with them too."
Well, I honestly forgot. Because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just was so excited, and Felix was with me, and I took as I was talking to Gene, I took the digital camera out of my pocket and handed it to him, but handed it to Felix, but never lost eye contact with Gene the whole
Nice.
time. Felix just read my mind and knew why I was like handing him off my camera. You know, I completely forgot, and he disappeared. I don't know how he disappeared. They must move them through secret entrances on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
ship, like Disney World, and he just vanished after we took the picture.
Yeah, yeah.
That was
Okay,
great.
so my next question, I think I know the answer to this when I see your background there. Do you consider yourself a collector?
Yeah, I do actually, but I didn't. I always say this though. I didn't start out that way. Everything that I buy, even though I have so much stuff, like 1,000 magazines, 300
Yeah.
posters, 100 and some 200 shirts, something like that. I buy every shirt to wear it, every poster to hang it up, every book to read it, every magazine to read it. A lot of my older magazines aren't even in good shape because, when I was a kid, you just rip all the color
Yeah.
pictures out and hang them up. So it turned into a collection because I bought everything I could get my hands on, but it was everything I put my hands on was just like, I love this. I got to have it. It looks cool. It's awesome. I got to hang this up. I got to read this. I got to. So, and then if you do that for 47 years, you just look up one day and go, well, I'm a collector because I have all this stuff. But I didn't do it the way that, I never did it just to collect it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though it's thousands of pieces and thousands of things, I wanted everyone because it just was like, this is the coolest belt buckle I've ever seen. This is the coolest whatever. Because I've passed on many. I don't buy every shirt on every tour. You know what I mean? I just go to the T-shirt booth. If I like one, I buy one. If I like three, I buy three. And, it turns into a collection that way.
Hmm. I started collecting as a kid, and then for some stupid reason I got rid of all my stuff. And then in the 90s, I vowed to get back everything I got rid of, and I just never stopped. And it kept on growing and growing to what it is now.
Yeah.
But I'm retiring in three or so years, and
Okay.
I can't do it right now financially. So I have to grow up a little bit and sell some of my stuff. Do you see yourself ever selling anything or selling your collection, either the whole collection, partial collection?
5 years ago, I would have said you're insane and probably hung up on you if you asked me that. I don't want to say yes or no because lately I don't know if it's because they retired and ever the future's sketchy. I'm gravitating towards a lot of my early stuff.
Me too.
Where I started or the most important things, and then you start to look around. Where am I going to hang 300 posters? There's some, so, but then which ones do you sell? You
Yeah,
know,
I know.
because then because if I go get the ones, some of them I have in tubes. I have this case that's actually for wrapping paper, but I put posters in there. If I start going through them, every one I pull out, I'm gonna be like, oh no, not this one. This is just too cool. And then the next one, I would probably think, no, I'm not getting rid of this one. It's just too awesome. Oh my God, I bought this at the concert. I can't get rid of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know,
I'm
So
gonna I'm
I don't know.
okay. I'm gonna keep the vintage stuff for sure, the high end stuff, all the Kiss Crew stuff, the things that mean something to me. I'm gonna keep, but all the figures and the makeup, I'm gonna get rid of that stuff. There's no more room. I got no more room.
Yeah, I don't either. It's almost why it's good they kind of retired because I haven't bought too much since the last
Yeah,
show.
exactly.
You know, um, I would never get rid of the music.
No, never.
It's hard to say because I did get a vault, not for $2,000. That's ridiculous. And I don't see myself. I love that thing. I know some people
Yeah.
complain about it,
Oh, I
but
love it.
yeah, and like I said, I did not pay the full price for it.
Yeah, I
Um,
did.
I didn't because a few years ago it was on rhinorecords.com for $499, and I was like, that from day one I thought it's only worth $500.
Yeah.
I'm not paying 2,000 for it. So the minute, literally the minute that I saw at that time Twitter, and I guess because I followed Gene because I didn't follow Rhino Records, but it popped up on my Twitter that Rhino was selling them for $499 plus shipping. And I was like, wait a second, is this real? I went and Googled and went on to Rhino to make sure it wasn't like a scam. And as soon as I realized, no, it's legit, I bought it in like 2 seconds.
Oh, good deal. Good deal.
Yes.
So I was talking about those important items. Do you have that one item that really has some sentimental value to you?
Yeah, and that can change, but
Yeah.
as far as obviously the original dolls from '78, I was such a like pulling teeth to get my parents or grandparents to buy me
Right.
all the dolls. So I love those. But then my 1978, the Ace solo album from '78. Um, my grandmother bought me that the first week they were out. My mom and my grandmother, we went to the local mall, and I didn't even know that they were doing the solo albums. So we went in the record store, and I still think I didn't have every Kiss record. I had most of them, but and I wanted to get like I think Hotter Than Hell or Dressed to Kill, one that I didn't have yet
Mhm.
because I'm still 9. I'm not even 10 yet.
Right.
So, but we go and there's a whole display of the 4 albums, and then my grandmother said I could pick one, and she would buy it for me. And even though at that time Gene was my favorite, I just picked Ace randomly. I don't know why. The blue looked cool. I don't know. And I love that record, but one of the reasons that's a favorite is then you fast forward to 1992. The first time I ever met Ace was at the New York Kiss convention, which
Yeah.
was actually at the Hilton Hotel in Meadowlands, New Jersey, by the stadiums. And that's the first time I met Ace, and that's what I had him sign.
Oh,
And I,
nice.
and I like to sort of connect the dots of who knew when my grandmother bought me that record when I was 9 years old that I would get Ace to sign it or that I would ever meet him ever. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? And that's framed, and it's like it's not a new one with blue vinyl, all these new
Yeah.
editions. It's the one my grandmother bought me when I was 9, and Ace signed it. And I've met Ace 8 or 9 times, or 7 or 8 times since then. But that's the first thing I ever had Ace signed, and he was still doing the name. It says to Bob, and he signed it, and he signed it like in the '70s, not the way he's been signing it lately. So
Okay.
it's a really sweet autograph, and it's that original record that my grandmother bought me. So
Oh, wow.
that's a favorite.
Yeah, those are the things that has value. You can't ever get rid of that.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So listen, I'm gonna say it here because one of my holy grail items is the pinball machine, right? But at this point in my life, if I were to have an opportunity to buy it, I just can't do it. I just can't.
Wow.
So I'm saying it here on the show. I can't do it. How about you? What's that holy grail item you'd love to have?
It's expensive, like the pinball machine.
Uh-huh.
I really want a Paul Stanley PS10 Ibanez guitar signed by
Wow,
Paul, the black
nice.
one. Because now there's purple, there's gold, there's
Yeah.
green, there's this, there's that. I would love just a black one, like when you open up a Live 2 and he's up on the riser. I would love a black one like that signed. But like you, that's just I'm not going to do it. I don't think unless somebody made me a deal or I won a contest. I don't
Yeah.
see myself getting that record because I want to retire in 5 years. So
Hmm.
so there's that.
Oh,
So
we're in the same boat then.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so I was talking about following you on social media again. You've done everything, and I've noticed that recently you've seen both Ace Frehley and Gene Simmons in concert.
Yes.
So Ace Frehley, what stood out about Ace's performance for you?
That he's getting old.
Really, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I still picture like the first time I ever saw him was 1990 on the Trouble Walking tour, and then some of those like 92 to 94 when he was just playing clubs. He came to this area 3 times in like a year and a half, and those were some of those 92, 93. ish era shows that Ace played, he was phenomenal.
Hmm.
Richie Scarlett was in the band.
Yeah.
They played fast, up tempo. Ace was very animated, and I still picture that in my head when I buy tickets to Ace Frehley. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like previously we saw him a couple of years ago in this area at the Keswick Theater in Glenside, PA, and I thought he was still pretty good. But I thought when I saw him earlier this summer down in the city in Philadelphia at the casino, I thought the backup band was phenomenal, but I thought he was a little slow, a little, sometimes not singing when he
Hmm.
should be, and I still had a good time because the backup band is so good
Yeah.
and the songs are so good and we had fun. I'd go again. It's not that bad that I wouldn't go again, but not as exciting as it had been in the past. But I still enjoyed myself, you
Hmm.
know.
I last saw Ace in Rutland about maybe a little over a year ago. And the
Okay.
show before ours, apparently it went wrong. Every which way you can think of, it just went wrong. So he had that show in the back of his mind when he was playing. And I'm sure he told himself, this is not happening again. And he just, what a show, what a performance. I met him backstage afterwards. And he was talking about his previous night's show and how happy he was with the show he just did with us, and he was phenomenal, just phenomenal. But I see some of his shows recently sometimes. I mean, we all have our off nights, but I'm glad I got to see that show where he was on, absolutely on.
Yeah, I wish I would have because I know that lately I know he's been working towards getting back to where he was, and I was really looking forward to
Yeah,
it. And he was complaining at the Philly show about the lights. The lights did look funny, but when he starts complaining to the audience that he
it's
can't see
over.
the dots of the neck of the guitar and whatever, you've been playing Shock Me and Rocket Ride for 45, 50 years. You still need to look at the dots on the electric guitar to get to hit all the notes. He should be able to do it blindfolded.
He always looks at it as guitar when he plays. Always.
I know, but I always thought that was part of the act.
Yeah, I wasn't so sure about that. you, you could see him focusing on his playing.
Okay, well, yeah, but he missed it. He told the audience, he goes, these lights in here, I don't know. I can't see the dots of the guitar. It was just like, okay, and then I watched the show I missed in Allentown, PA that Matt went to. I watched about 90% of it on YouTube, and I was like, oh, man, I wish I didn't have to work that night because that looked like a better show.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I've heard complaints about the Gene Simmons show, that he always has his people on stage. There's no continuity to the show. It's stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. What was your experience with the Gene show?
You see what people are saying, and I do kind of agree, but I really had a great time, I have to
Hmm.
say. I really enjoyed. I saw him twice. I saw him in Montclair, New Jersey, and Bethlehem, PA. And the Montclair show, um, uh, Tommy James from Tommy James and the Shondells was there because he lives in Montclair. They did Moni Moni, and that was great. I didn't mind the cover songs as much as some people, like
Yeah,
Eddie Trunk. I'm a
yeah.
big fan of Eddie Trunk, but he didn't complain about it. He was at the show actually in Montclair. I saw him and said hello to him, Eddie
Okay.
Trunk. But and I love his rants, and I agree. But I was just happy to be there because that one Montclair I wasn't even supposed to go to. I got out of work early. I didn't even know until 4 o'clock in the afternoon that I was
Oh,
going to
wow.
Montclair. The Bethlehem I bought them the day they went on sale in December, but the Montclair was like, my boss said, we're not busy. Do you want to go home early? And I was like, what? you know? And I like text Felix and I said, we can go to that Montclair show if you want, and like 2 hours later, there we are sitting in our seats, waiting for
Oh,
Gene to come on.
wow.
Yeah, it was a pretty good night. I think that I just enjoyed it. I definitely do agree with Eddie Trunk. I would rather hear deep cuts when
Yeah.
the one guy does his solo and starts playing. I don't remember those band members' names.
Hmm.
I forget them every other day. When he started playing Larger Than Life as part of his solo, I jumped up and was like, come on, I wanted Gene to sing it. But, overall, I just, it was fun.
Hmm.
It was just the band is good. Everything they did was just fun. And they played Charisma,
I love
and
that song.
yeah, I know. And it was just so much fun to be there and different because on the end of the road tour, I think I counted this morning from 2019 to 2023, I saw 6 or 7 shows, and
Hmm.
they're all pretty much the same. Not that I'm complaining; it's a Kiss show,
Yeah.
but that those Gene shows were my first Kiss concert experience in the family of Kiss since the last show, and for it to be a completely different thing was actually really exciting.
Hmm. Now, as an overall concert experience, how would you compare the two? Ace's show with Gene's show.
Gene seemed more. It seemed bigger because at the Bethlehem show at the what's the name of that casino? Whatever casino it is in Bethlehem that he played. We were in the third row, and that it felt like a big time arena show, even though
Hmm.
it wasn't. It just had the power and the energy. I know he talks a lot between the songs and tells stories but when they play Deuce and they play Dr. Love, and we were down in the third row and everybody's freaking out, I was like, this is a Kiss show. You know,
Nice.
Ace was like the place I saw at the Rivers Casino in Philadelphia, that's a ballroom that they converted into a concert venue. You could have a wedding reception in there. So
Okay.
that had its own charm to it as well. I actually said to one of the ushers at Rivers Casino at the Ace show, I said, I said, where are our seats? And he told us where to go. And I said, I've seen some Ace and some dives. This room is really nice. You know. It was kind of funny. So that was the element to the Ace, but the Gene shows came off more like just, even though we weren't in an arena for either show I saw, it felt like you were.
Okay. Very cool. All right. So I want to get your take on a couple of Kiss related topics. We recently did an episode paying tribute to Eric Singer. So what are your thoughts about Eric not being a part of the Las Vegas event? And are you going to that event?
It doesn't look like I am. It's just too expensive.
Okay.
I could end up spending that much money on another Kiss event down the line, but I just looked at it and like with the way my job is, it's just ridiculous. I don't even want to get into it because this is going online. They're just strict about when you can and can't have off, and sometimes I have to work my entire life around what they do. But I wouldn't have a chance to retire in 5 years if I didn't have this job. So
Yeah.
I just have to go with it, and it would be hard to get those days off, and it's expensive, and and the whole way that the thing is shaped up haphazardly, I'm not as excited as I should be. When I do drop that money for a cruise or whatever that's expensive, usually I look at it and say, well, we got to go no matter how much it costs.
Yeah.
And I haven't looked at the Vegas thing like that at all. It's just like, I'd
Okay.
like to go. I'd like to be there. I'm sure I'd have a great time. And I'll probably regret it when I'm watching stuff on YouTube that I'm not there, when it happens. But it doesn't. I don't think I'm going to go. It's just all over the place what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of which, again, Eric Singer won't be there. What do you think?
Well, that means we really saw the last show at Madison Square Garden.
Right.
So there's that side to it. As far as being a fan of Eric Singer, I've always liked him, because the first time I saw him was when he played with Paul Stanley in '89 on the solo tour. So, and I liked him then. I was happy, when Eric Carr had cancer. I did not want the band to end, and I hoped they would call Eric Singer. So when he joined for Revenge, it was sort of like, oh, they did what I wanted. They read my mind. They must have came to me, from outer space, because I was hoping that they wouldn't decide to stop, because I knew they were not going to call Peter Criss when Eric Carr died. I mean, that would have been the ultimate, but I just didn't think they would do it. And I thought they should get the guy from Paul's solo tour. He was fantastic,
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always been a fan. So, I would love it if, even though I'll probably just watch everything on YouTube, I'm a fan. I like him. We don't have any idea why he's not doing it. So, but like I said, it means that we really saw the last show at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. I just see, I can't go either, but I could imagine being there and there's that white elephant in the room. Where's Eric? Why isn't he here? Do you think Eric not being there would change the vibe of the event? Do you think it wouldn't matter either way?
I think so, because if you have Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, they're the guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's really, even though I like Eric Singer a lot. It's just, you're going there to see Gene and Paul anyway. So no, I don't think so. It depends on what they do. What are they going to play? I want to see them do deep cuts. If they got up and did a similar set to what we saw on that End of the Road tour without makeup, been there, done that.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of which, end of the road. How do you see Kiss being remembered for future generations?
They redefined live entertainment, you know, and I think that that's never going to go away because, you know, because everybody knows it. Do you know what I mean? It's like everybody's show is a is a Kiss show in some way. I mean, when I look at everybody, I'm like, well, I saw Kiss do that already. Do you know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything that they do, it's a variation of what they started, and that a show is an important part of an artist. I mean, when you watch those Beatles concerts when they were still playing live, they're not very exciting,
Hmm.
and it's the Beatles.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think Kiss redefined that you need more than just a good album. When people come to see you, they want to see something. They don't want to just look at you. They want, I went to 65 Kiss concerts in my life. I don't think I would have if it wasn't that entertaining. I only saw the Bangles with Susanna Hoffs once.
Right. We're
And they
seeing though.
had
We're
Susanna
seeing.
Hoffs, and I
Exactly.
right. So, and I went
Ex-
to see Kiss 65 times. So that tells you right there the difference between a Kiss show and everybody else's show.
hmm I don't know. I just hope that their legacy doesn't die with us, and they're gonna be remembered as Kiss, because, like you said, their DNA is everywhere. It's in the other people's music and shows. It can't be forgotten. But will it be remembered that this came from Kiss? And
Hmm.
I hope somehow that's going to be the case. And that's what I want to ask you. Now that Pop House has the rights to Kiss and they're moving in a certain direction, I tend to feel that it's less for us and more for a younger generation, obviously, because they're the next generation. And there's less for us. And what is out there for us, they're just gouging us with these expensive items and records and box sets and. What do you think is the legacy of Kiss, or where Kiss is heading right now? The
That's a
brand.
hmm. Well, I'll tell you. The last year of the live band 2023, I went to Nashville to see them play.
Hmm.
And which was great. I did the sound check package and all that. But one of the things that Felix and I did on that trip was we got there a couple of days early, and we took a day and we rented a car and we drove 3 hours to Memphis to go to Graceland. And Graceland and all this stuff that's there, that's Elvis Presley Enterprises.
Yeah. Yeah.
The family only owns like 10% of that and the house. Do you know what I mean? They don't. The rest of it is a corporation. And
Hmm.
I remember walking as soon as we got there and parked the car and went inside to pick up our tour tickets and do all that. Just when you walk in and see the first gift shop and the setup and hearing the music, I thought, this guy died in 1977. Look at this place, you
Yeah.
know. And I didn't know at that point that Kiss was going to sell everything, but I really did think, like, hey, wouldn't it be nice if somebody smart could make the Kiss legacy be like this, because Elvis has been going a long time, and we were excited. I mean, I only bought one T-shirt there, but I could have bought a dozen, and there were tons. It was all and people of all ages. Because I didn't really know anything about Elvis Presley until the day he died.
Hmm.
Because it was all over the news, and I was like 7 years old, and like, who is this guy? And my grandmother bought me a record, but and then I became a little bit of an Elvis fan, and I still am. But just walking around there and thinking, a company did this. As much as people that like Elvis, we love Elvis, but he would be a footnote all these years later, just for a documentary, not this place, this Mecca, and all these shirts and merch. And they even did shirts. I was impressed by this. I didn't buy one. He was a little bit of an electrician before he got discovered, and they had work shirts from the company that he worked for with his name, Elvis, the button-down work shirts
Oh my
for
God.
sale for like $60, and had the name of the company he worked for on the sleeve, the light blue and work shirt that you would wear. And I thought, that's genius.
That's brilliant.
Yes, it is. And all the other glasses, shot glasses, sunglasses that look like his, all over the place. It was ridiculous. And I was really like, we're getting ready to see what was going to be my second to the last Kiss show ever, most likely. And I'm like, I hope somebody does this for Kiss, because I would love to, if I'm lucky enough to live to be 80 years old, still have somewhere to go like this. So, I hope Pop House, somebody has that kind of vision. It won't be the same as it was for us, because they won't be going to shows, the kids and the whatever, but somebody kept Elvis's legacy alive, because there were young people there.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that brings up a good point. I never thought of it that way, because I don't know, is really the Avatars the future of Kiss, the legacy of Kiss? I don't think so. For you, what would be Kiss's Memphis?
I don't know, because they don't have a house or a place. The museum in Vegas is a nice start next to the mini golf.
Right.
And as cool as the mini golf is, that isn't going to sustain like a Graceland.
Right.
I love it there. I haven't been there since they put the museum next door. So I don't know what you do. Is the museum enough if it gets big enough? It depends on what they do with it. Like, are they going to make a movie? Is it going to be as successful as the Queen movie? I don't know if anyone's going to win an Oscar for playing Gene Simmons.
Right.
I would love that, and that would be exciting. If they make like animated movies, sometimes when I read some of these modern comic books, I'm like, these should be movies.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It depends on how good the Avatars are. Is it good enough to get people that are not Kiss fans to go? Because once all the Kiss fans go, if that's all the only people that are interested in the Avatars, it's just going to die.
Yeah.
Because the ABBA show in England or wherever, there aren't just ABBA fans going to see that. There's no way. There's not that many ABBA fans to sustain that for that long. As long as it's been going. There's obviously people just going because they heard it's a cool sort of like hologram, 3D, however they're doing it show. It has to be, the Avatars have to be almost as good as like Star Wars in 1977.
Mm-hmm. But also ABBA is much bigger than Kiss ever was. And it caters to the general public.
True.
I'm not a big ABBA fan. I would still go to that.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And the problem with Kiss is that most people, I don't think you're going to get people that are, because here, let me think. Most people, they either like ABBA or they don't like ABBA, but they know a song or two. But people don't dislike ABBA the way that Kiss can sometimes be disliked. Some people just, how it is. You wear a shirt, someone just says something to you, sort of rude, or oh, they're terrible, they're evil, they're whatever, and I'm like, did I criticize your blue shirt? So I don't know, even if it is spectacular like Star Wars was in 77 or Jaws was in 75, where everyone went to see this thing, even if it's that good, I still think it's gonna struggle a little bit, because some people are gonna just, because that's Kiss, there's no way I'm going to that.
Yeah. Because they're gonna create this whole facility around the Avatars, right? And whatever they do, this facility can't just be about the Kiss Avatars. It has to be something bigger. That has to be their Memphis, or else I don't see the legacy going anywhere from there. It's a good point that you brought up. It made me think of this in a different way now, the whole Elvis Presley thing. And I think this is their opportunity to build their Memphis with this Avatar facility that they're doing, but it has to be more than just the Avatars. I don't know what, but more than just the Avatars.
Unless the Avatars are so spectacular that you can't not go. And I don't know, the way technology is, 6 months later that could be outdated.
Yeah, but they have to keep bringing out new shows.
True.
Yeah. So Rob, I can't believe that we're almost done here already. It just flew by this hour.
Okay.
So I have one more question before we wrap up the show. If you could sum up what it means to be a Kiss fan, or what Kiss meant to your life, how would you respond?
Well, being a Kiss fan is the most fun I've ever had, pretty much, for the most part. And What has it meant to my life? Sometimes I think I would have just been more introverted and a couch potato if it wasn't for
Right.
the band. Because a lot of places I traveled to see Kiss, and then that made me say, oh, well, I went to Disney World by myself one time, completely unrelated to Kiss, but because I had already been traveling around to see Kiss, I was like, well, I can go to Disney World by myself. But if it wasn't for Kiss, I never would have like jumped. I don't like to drive long distances, but I'll cave and do it for Kiss. You know
Right.
what I mean? And things like that. And then you meet people like you, like Matt, like these people. I may have just sat at home all this time because believe me, on a Friday night, I'm perfectly happy just ordering some takeout and clearing off the DVR. And before that, it was the VCR. So you know what I mean? So I didn't need, I don't know if I would have felt the need to go to that. That's that saying of we have to go to that. To
Yeah.
text Matt, to text my friend Felix, to text somebody else, be like, yo, this thing is happening. We have to go. We have to go to this convention. We have to go to this show. We have to go to this book signing, or whatever it is. That it got me out of the house. And even going all the way back to fifth grade, I did a school play in fifth grade. And I actually did school plays all the way till I graduated high school. And that's why I was taking acting class at the community college. But when I first, all we had to do was raise our hand to be in the school play in fifth grade. And I raised my hand because I wanted to go on stage.
Mm.
I didn't care if I wasn't going to spit blood. I wasn't going to play the bass. They were just like, who wants to be in the play? And I put my hand up because I was like, oh, I can go on stage like Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley and Ace and all that. And that got me to then in middle school try out for the play and make it. Even if it was a part that only had 3 lines, I loved walking out there and saying my 3 lines. And
Yeah.
that also made me more outgoing. I never even would have tried out for any of that if it wasn't for Kiss.
Mm-hmm.
And then I never would have met Matt, because I wouldn't have been in an acting class in 1988. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's a whole like zigzag of things. I think it changed my personality for the better.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Okay, so I have a follow-up question. Now that Kiss has reached the end of the road, and who knows where this legacy is going, is there something else that will get you out of that seat
Besides Kiss or from Kiss?
besides Kiss?
Heather Locklear.
Good answer. Linda Carter.
Yeah, I like her too, but because I've already met Cheryl Ladd. So Heather Locklear is a bucket list, and younger actress Lucy Liu. Really, a lot of actresses, to be honest with you.
Right.
My bucket lists right now are still Heather Locklear forever. I can't believe in all these years going to conventions, Heather Locklear hasn't been at one. Lucy Liu and Melissa Benoist that played Supergirl, which I almost met her. And I didn't because she played for 13 weeks Carole King on Broadway. And I did go to a performance, but it was one of the only nights she didn't come out of the stage door and sign. I waited there, and then they came out and said she went out the front door, she's gone. And but I had like third row in the orchestra pit to see the show, so I did see Melissa Benoist up close. But those are my 3. But Heather Locklear, yeah, I'll go anywhere. I'll get on a plane at this point.
Nice. Yeah, no, for me, it's like I'm really into Comic Cons, so that will get me out of my seat absolutely. And I love to meet Lee Majors and Lindsay Wagner.
I've done that.
I know you've done that.
I've met Lee Majors 3 times.
I know you've done that. I'm so jealous, man. I'd love to meet them.
And Lindsay Wagner once, and they're fantastic, super sweet, super nice. They're great,
Yeah, one day.
Yeah.
So I want to tell you, before coming on the show, I thought, let me get a little workout in before coming on the show. Didn't have time, had a lot to do today. But, listening to you talking and this back and forth exchange we've been having about the band, hey, my heart's been racing, man. I've been working out, sitting down in front of a microphone. This was so much fun. It was amazing catching up with you after all of these years.
Yes.
And not just, hey, hi, how's it going? What's new? Actually talking about our experiences and our love and passion for the band. It was an amazing hour. Thank you so much.
Oh, I enjoyed it. Thank you for asking me. I love talking Kiss with anybody, and we don't always get a chance to talk like this when we meet up in person at a show or anything like that. It's just, because we're always on the run. I saw
Exactly.
you at the Gene Simmons. Speaking of the Comic-Con, remember we were at the one in Rhode Island,
Yes.
the Comic-Con. But we didn't really have a chance to talk. It was just like, hey, good to see you. I gotta go over here. You gotta go over
I
there.
remember.
Yeah.
That was a crazy weekend.
Yes, that was a good
crazy
one too.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Yes,
that was
it
a great show.
Mhm.
But I remember we had to wait in line to be in line to be in line. It was
Right.
nothing but lineups all day.
Yes,
It
was
a fantastic weekend. Fantastic weekend.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So once again, my friend, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I hope it's not your last.
Yeah,
Love
thank
to have
you.
you back.
Anytime. Okay. All right.
To the KISS Army, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please send them to talktome@kissarmynationpodcast.com. Until the next time, remember, never stop rocking. Take care, everyone.